Welcome, Alanna, to Alopecia Life.
I am so happy to be here, Deanne. Thank you for inviting me, and I am excited for our conversation.
Me too. Me too. I'm excited. You and I, let's talk a little bit about how we met, which was back in late April, and we were at the Global Skin Conference.
Yes.
And yeah, it was exciting to meet you. And I love seeing people who have energy and passion for a cause. And that's kind of why we were all there at the Global Skin Conference. We're all, there's patient advocacy going on, and it was exciting to be a part of.
Yes, it was amazing just being part of that global community, because I think sometimes people feel so all alone. And that just reminds you that there are, so many others out there that are trying to make the world a better place for people with skin conditions. So yeah, I definitely felt very encouraged coming home from Prague after that meeting and after meeting you and people like you there.
Thank you. Yeah. And I know you didn't actually come home after that. You were going on to do more work. You were doing some mission work, and you were doing some other volunteer work. You do a lot in the space with volunteering, right?
Yes, yes, I do. And it is a passion and a privilege. I practiced pediatric dermatology for 20 years and retired from that just because at this stage I really want to have more of a ripple effect with my life and my knowledge and helping other people to love the skin they're in. That's kind of my mission in life. And if I can do that in any way. And children with albinism. Um, they really have a special place in my heart, and especially children with albinism in Africa. They face some extra special challenges
Mhm.
um, that, it's actually their life is at stake in a lot of ways, not just because of the skin cancers they get, but because they are actually hunted for their body parts, which is just insane in this day and age, just because of lack of information and understanding. And I think that's where so much of the social emotional impacts of skin disease come from. Is people are just misinformed. They don't understand, and you don't know what you don't know. So being able
Yeah.
to educate and build awareness
Mhm.
is it can be life changing.
Yeah, that obviously is an amazing cause to be there and be part of that change that hopefully will happen with your help. Or is happening, I should say. It is going on. So that's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about how you decided to become a dermatologist?
Yes, so it is. I didn't even realize dermatology is one of the most competitive specialties to match into as a medical student. And I will tell you, I did not even realize that. And I think I'm glad I didn't, because I really thought I wanted to be a pediatric dermatologist. Well, I'm sorry, not a pediatric dermatologist, just a plain pediatrician. Not a
Mhm.
plain. Pediatricians are amazing. In my mind, they're some of the smartest people I know, but I wanted to be a general pediatrician. Um, and help kids of all kinds with their physical and so much, social emotional as well with all kids that are finding their way. And I luckily had a required 2-week rotation at my school, SIU School of Medicine in Springfield, Illinois, small little school, but I think is a really great place to be educated. And I had really great mentors there, but I had this required 2-week rotation and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with dermatology. I couldn't put the textbook down. And it was late in my medical school career. I technically should have been published and working with mentors and doing all the
Mhm.
things. But I found out that there was a subspecialty of pediatric dermatology during that rotation. And during that rotation, we had a journal club and we were reading an article about Camp Discovery through the Academy of Dermatology, Dr.
Mhm.
Dahl. Mark Dahl is the one who had written that article. He was the president of the AAD and he started up the camp in Minnesota. And we read that during the journal club. And that just sealed the deal. I was like, oh my gosh, I can take care of kids with skin conditions and go to a camp and support them. So I had to kind of scramble a bit. My husband was a med student with me. We had both of our kids in med school. I had started a cleaning business to help pay for our education because medical school education is expensive, babies. So anyway, I believe it was really God's plan for my life, if you want me to be honest, because if you looked at my application on paper, I should have never been where I'm at today, but I am blessed to be doing something that I just love so much.
Awesome. And I like how you mentioned Camp Discovery and the fact that you could be there and be part of something at a camp environment, because I know firsthand, I've seen it, the effect that being around people like you or in similar situations can make a huge difference.
Right. I think that's some of the best medicine is just kids, even adults realizing they're not alone because I think so much of skin disease is just there's the physical suffering in some of the conditions. It's itchy, it's uncomfortable, or maybe even the treatments that are required because of it, or the side effects of the medication, the need for blood work, all of those things impact it physically, but then the social and emotional part of it that people just don't understand. And it's kind of this double-edged sword because we know people with skin conditions, alopecia is one of the main ones, is that there are a lot of assumptions when people see you and you technically wear your disease for the whole world to see. If you have diabetes or high blood pressure or even cancer, you don't have to let anybody know about it unless you want to share about it.
Mhm.
But this is the first thing that people see about us is our external appearance, right? And so as you know, and I don't need to tell you this, there are a lot of questions. There are kind questions where people are just curious, but then there are people that are just so inappropriate. It's like, did you grow up with any manners at all?
Yeah.
Like, why would that be okay to go up to somebody and say, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with your skin? Like, why do you look like that? Like, that's not an appropriate way to address that
Right.
situation. So again, and then if you say that it's hard, then people are like, well, at least you're not dying because a lot of people get asked, well, do you have cancer? And you're like, no, I have alopecia areata, blah, blah, blah. But then they're like, oh, well, lucky you, at least you're not dying. Well, yes, that is true. But
Mhm.
the anxiety and, depression and all those things that go along with wearing your disease for the world to see
Mhm.
is hard. So you don't get validated that it's hard. And I think that's why camps or, these meetings, these patient advocacy groups that support people that look just like you or similar to you or have a similar lived experience, so many people feel so all alone. So when we can come together in community and see other people that look like us, interact with other people, hear their stories, and just sit in solidarity with one another, if you
Yeah.
will. Like, this is
Yeah.
hard and we get it. Sometimes you don't even need words, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I've just seen so many beautiful friendships and, encouraging support come from these camps and from these patient advocacy organizations. And, you know, feeling like you're not alone is good medicine.
It is absolutely something that comes with being a pediatrician, obviously, is you're working with young patients and you're also working with families. Can you kind of share more about experience when families come in? Because a lot of the time, when you have a condition, I mean, they say with alopecia areata, when your child's diagnosed with alopecia, the entire family is diagnosed. Obviously we know we're family's not living with it, this on the same level, but we are all navigating it, our parents, our whoever our caregiver is, our siblings. And so what would you say about your experience as a dermatologist when working with parents?
Yes. So, you know, I, as a parent, have struggled to be the perfect parent because there is no such thing, I guess is what I want to put out there first.
Absolutely.
And I give a lot of grace to parents because
Yeah.
half the time the things you deal with as a parent, like you never signed up for this. You really didn't think you did. You did, but you didn't know. You get thrown curveballs all the time. And even if you thought
Hmm.
you were prepared to be a parent, um, these situations that come up are hard to navigate sometime. And you don't always have the tools. So
Right.
sometimes you need people to give you those tools and add them to your toolbox, right? And luckily,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many ways to get that, through physicians, through therapists, through patient advocacy organizations. But, my experience as a pediatric dermatologist, you're right. The whole family gets a diagnosis. A lot of times, if the child's younger, they don't even know what alopecia is. They don't
Right.
even, it takes a while for kids, they have this reciprocal play. Well, they don't even really realize there's other people in the world. Like they know it, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
get it, right?
Yeah.
And then really around preschool, kindergarten is the first time that kids really start to realize, oh, I am this and this person is that, you know what I mean? And they start to
Mm-hmm.
develop that sense of self and the sense of others and how they may be similar and how they may be different. And that's just developmental. So certainly kids under the age of kindergarten, when they get a diagnosis, it doesn't impact them. It impacts the parents way more. And I will tell you, alopecia areata was one of the hardest conditions to give to parents, because many of them had been online beforehand because, their
Mm-hmm.
kids getting bald patches. You search that up and you come
Mm-hmm.
across, very severe forms of this condition. And once you see those pictures, you can't unsee those pictures.
Yeah.
And you just don't know what that means for your child's life. And again,
Mm-hmm.
I think, they always say like it's better to live in the present because, we can't change the past and we really can't control
Right.
the future, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's when we start to project into the future, like what is this going to mean? Is my child going to be completely bald? Um, are they going to get, bullied at school? Are they going to get a prom date? Are they going to find a spouse and get
Mm-hmm.
married? And again, it's all these like that's where the fears and anxieties and worries
Right.
come in because they're looking into the future. Well, we don't know what the future holds. And especially that's another part I think with alopecia areata is that it is unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what the course is going to be because again, all of us like to feel like we have control of a
Mm-hmm.
situation, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you get this diagnosis, you realize that you're not in control and and again, me as a parent, and I think most parents kind of want to put kids in bubble wrap and not let them get hurt and not let them experience any pain. But I will tell you that most of these kids regrow their hair. But again, the parents don't know that. They're again looking at the pictures online. So I think, just really trying not to be anxious would be a good tip that I had for parents because that anxiety then transfers to your child and then they become anxious. They're going to mirror you, especially when they're younger.
Mm-hmm.
So just saying, okay, this is what the condition is. We are unsure about the future, but the one thing that I know is I love my child. I'm going to love my
Mm-hmm.
child if they have a few patches of hair loss or if they're completely bald.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to pour into their life as much as I can to boost them up so that when they go out into this world, the things I'm worried about, if they go out into the world all boosted up and loving the skin they're in,
Yeah.
they're going to have a much better time. But if they hear the negatives about it at home and when parents talk to their friends on the phone, the kids hear
Mm-hmm.
this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the other thing too is just watch your words. Our words are very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think parents really need to hold their tongue when they talk about alopecia. Um, in front of their child. And it's fine to have anxieties. I have them myself. My kids have chronic issues and medical problems of their own. And, but do that with your spouse or with a trusted friend outside of the realm of your child, like not in
Mm-hmm.
earshot, not around, because again,
Yeah.
they hear everything and they internalize that. And if they hear a parent saying, all these negative things about alopecia, they're going to internalize that as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
I think you get to write your kid's story in a lot of ways. And I think if
Mm-hmm.
you write in a positive perspective, they're going to have that same positive perspective because they're going to mirror you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is, I think sometimes parents try to hide it as well. So I'm not saying stuff your feelings down and don't pretend that they exist.
Right. Right.
But the negative parts of it, I think you can leave out. But I do think, we don't want to have toxic positivity either. We have to
Yeah,
address these things.
totally.
And I think parents sometimes will shy away from, and I've had parents that don't want to say the word hair loss or bald in front of their child too. So it can swing the other
Hmm.
way where they're
Right.
not willing to talk about it, or they'll even tell me, like they'll call when they're setting up the appointment and say, we don't want Dr. Bree to say anything about hair loss in the room. Well, then why does you're not letting them be part of the conversation and
Hmm.
involving your child in the conversation so that they
Yeah.
can accept it is really important. So again, that doesn't help them either if you try to hide it. And then parents will tell me sometimes, we would have conversations where the kiddos would go into the waiting room or what have you. And I think that would be something I would recommend, that if
Hmm.
you want to have a conversation with the dermatologist about sensitive situations, especially at the beginning, I think it's great to kind of say, oh gosh, wouldn't it, can you go out and color in the waiting room? I wanted to talk to the doc, and prepare your
Yeah.
child in advance that I'm going to want to talk to your doctor a little bit by myself. And then
Hmm.
they kind of know to expect that and bring
Yeah.
some colors or a phone or whatever. And then, let the staff know that you're going to send them out to the waiting room, or they can hang out with the
Hmm.
nurse in the back of the office. And that
Yeah.
gives you the space to have these difficult conversations,
Yeah.
because you do need to, the parents need to have their questions answered, but the kids do too. And
Hmm. Yeah.
um, I would be sure, because I think when we show that this is hard for us in a soft way, if you will,
Hmm.
as a parent,
Hmm.
that it makes it okay for these kids to have these feelings
Yeah.
as well, because they're processing as well.
Yeah.
And, even if we don't talk about it, parents are like, well, I don't want to go to this conference because then they're going to see people that have worse hair loss than them,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then they're going to worry that they're going to have that. I'm like, well, they have the internet. They've
Hmm.
probably searched it themselves too after a certain
Hmm.
age, right?
Right.
And they already are worried about that. But if we make it this closed door conversation all the time, so again,
Yeah.
and if you
Yeah.
need a counselor, if you need a physician to help facilitate that discussion with you, I think that is a great way to pull in your physicians or therapists or
Hmm.
what have you, to have that conversation if you don't feel comfortable as a parent.
Hmm.
But pretending it doesn't exist at all is also not the right way to deal with it.
Totally. I love that. I love all of that. There's a couple things that came up while you were talking that I was thinking about. And one of the things that really drew me to you when we were at that conference was that we were talking about how not to talk about things in front of your children in a negative way, right? Or the way that you feel is shouldn't necessarily be overheard. And you mentioned that here. And something that you mentioned was the itch and bitch, right? And I
Yes,
was like, oh my gosh, that's hysterical and awesome all at the same time. I'd love
right.
for you to share with listeners kind of about the itch and bitch.
Yeah, yeah. It was a session that we used to have when we had a physical space for our nonprofit, Made a Masterpiece. We used to be
Hmm.
called the Children's House for the Soul. And we had a little house, and we would have these sessions because so many kids are itchy with their skin conditions and they don't
Hmm.
sleep and they're fussy and da da da. So we would bring mamas in and let them just have time with other people that understood. So I think
Hmm.
that is a great, just like sending your kids to camp so they can be around other kids that understand,
Hmm.
having a mama's kind of support group that understands. You just walk in and they understand that you didn't sleep, your kid was itchy scratchy all night, you might have peeled them off
Hmm.
bloody sheets, or your kids are getting bullied and you don't know how to deal, it just,
Yeah.
you're in a safe space with other people who understand. And I think, that was lovely when we did that in person. We actually, though, just last night had our first session of Unwind with Wine, and it's WHINE. So this is our online
Hmm.
version, is Made a Masterpiece. It's a safe space for mamas, to kind of just come into a safe space with other mamas who understand. Um, in the evening, they can grab a glass of wine, wine, if they like, but if they don't want to, this is just a place where they can come and just be real and whine about how hard it can be
Yeah.
to have a kiddo with a condition that, may be difficult to deal with physically, and then socially, emotionally, the medicines, and just kind of, again, just being in solidarity, sitting in it with someone
Mhm.
else can just feel good.
Yeah, totally. And how would you say that went online versus in person last?
It was lovely. So, it was a small group, which I think sometimes that's better.
Hmm.
And crazy enough, it's facilitated by myself as a PD derm. And then Marnie Lowe is a family and marriage therapist. And
Okay.
I actually met her on my way back from that trip. So I had kind of jumped around, went to Budapest for a project we're working on, then again, Prague to Global Skin, where I met you,
Hmm.
and then to Tanzania for this mission trip at Shade School. And I was
Hmm.
coming back. She was coming back from Tanzania, but she got delayed. So we were in Dubai at the same time, ended up on the same flight, sat next to each other, and of course became BFFs on our
Love
flight to New
it.
York. And so, yeah, it was our first of hopefully many. So I would invite
Yeah.
anybody in the alopecia community, any mamas that are struggling. We'll be probably having these every 2, 3 months just to, jump on our social media and like us and follow us and all those things, just because then they'll see when it's coming. But unwind with wine.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was nice. And I think most of us are used to being online anymore. Of
Hmm.
course, in-person connection is great, but the nice thing about this is you can just be home in your PJs
Hmm.
with your hair not done. You don't have to get in the car and drive and fight traffic or,
Yeah.
schedule like you're at home. And
Hmm.
again, I would encourage mamas to find a quiet place, let their partner deal with bedtime routine or homework for that hour that we get together so that you can have some private quiet time with a group of women that also understand.
Yeah. And I want to mention too that the majority of parents who reach out are moms, I mean, you do attract that population for sure, but there are so many dads who are kind of in the dark in a real different place, right? I mean, they're kind of
Right.
it's a whole different experience for them, especially if they're leading the show. They're like, well, do I need help? I don't know. And I'm making it sound all masculine. But but there's a different dynamic that happens there. And so we do want them to be included in, these conversations, of course, and have access to these online conversations and in-person meetups and want them to feel comfortable. How can dad, I mean, how many dads kind of do you normally work with or men?
So the majority are mamas. They
Hmm.
come, and
Yeah.
that's just the need. And we actually did have a couple dad events, um, because it is a different challenge. But,
Yeah.
and again, this is a generalization, but I will tell you that we had zero participants at both of those.
Yeah.
And one, we even went in person to like a place to play darts. Like it was a really fun place. So, I just haven't seen the interest. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly I am all about supporting the entire family because again, it
Yeah.
is a family diagnosis. Whenever you're taking care of a pediatric patient in a pediatric condition, the whole
Hmm.
family, including the siblings, are involved. And we have had a couple sibling groups, and those were better attended, and facilitated by a child life specialist, and that was good. Um, but yeah, we haven't seen an interest from the dads, and I don't know, like, I think, again, it's a generalization, but men for the most part don't like to come bare their soul. And again, these mamas aren't bearing their soul. Sometimes they're just coming to whine and bitch. I mean, that's
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
And I think dads think we're gonna sit around and sing Kumbaya or something, which we may if we ever get to that point. I don't know. If it happens, it happens, but that's not the intent of these sessions, right?
Right.
It's just to
Right.
create a safe space for conversation with others who understand. So,
Yeah.
dads, if you're out there listening and you want something, let us know. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so great about you is that you do take the time, you do have the passion for this, and you go, oh, there's a need, and I'd like to fill that. I don't know that, generally speaking, most of our experiences as patients and families are met with that passion and determination from doctors. What can you suggest? I mean, I think that actually, I'll ask, what kind of time frame did you give with your patients in typical visits? You know, especially the first visit, of course, is always a little bit longer, but for you, what were
Yes.
you able to give?
So when you work at an institution, you don't get to choose.
Hmm.
I will just say that
Yeah.
the majority of physicians and other care providers, healthcare providers, do not get to choose how long their appointments are. And this is not giving a free pass to my colleagues, but more than 50% are significantly burned out because of the same system that frustrates the patients.
Right.
System is not made for patients and it's not made for doctors. And at some point, most doctors go in. I think truly I've seen this where you go in and you're very much want to make this huge difference with your life,
Right.
and then you just keep getting knocked down by the system. And patients experience this with getting medicines or getting therapy. You just keep getting knocked down,
Hmm.
and finally, eventually, you're just like, okay, I can't get back up. And I think, unfortunately, that's where a lot of care providers are now in our US healthcare system. And so it's really hard. And I worked at a large children's hospital. And toward the end of my tenure there, I started to have panic attacks on my way into work, because I knew I was going to fail. The system was set up for me to fail,
Hmm.
in caring for my patients. And I didn't want to lose my heart for patient care. Um,
Hmm.
but it also, doctors are human too.
Hmm.
And if you continue to care that much in a system, you will drive yourself crazy. And so I had 10 minutes of patient there, 10 minutes. And at a teaching institution, you also need to teach the residents and students you're with. My wait list time, it was 9 months to get an appointment with me. I would have some patients that would come and and this was back in the day where people would have printed medical records, like a stack of medical records, because there's less than 500 pediatric dermatologists in our country. There's 9 states that don't even have a pediatric dermatologist. So the need is great.
Hmm.
And I knew I was going to run behind. I knew I wasn't going to get to address all the things that I wanted to, because, you need to teach and you need to get the history, let the resident go in and get the history and tell it to you. And then you go in and then you have to, look through their stack of medical records that were just presented to you,
Right.
to see, kind of get a summary of that quickly, examine them, talk about the treatment options if there are any. Most of the things are off label in pediatric dermatology. So most things aren't FDA approved, so they're off label. So talking about having that discussion, then talking about side effects, benefits, alternatives, and then, to try and touch on the social and emotional aspects after you've done all that. And then you have to go out and then you have to, again, summarize the case for the learners that are with you. And then you have medical records. And then if you prescribed anything, you're probably going to have to fill out a prior authorization form for their medication. And then they're going to go
Right.
pick it up at the pharmacy, and the pharmacist is going to lie to them and say, oh, your doctor didn't send this in. And I've sent it in 3 times, and they just kind of use that scapegoat of us. Um,
Hmm.
and anyway, it's just really hard to practice. So I guess that's what makes it really hard. So when you're sensing that, um, just know it's a systemic problem that we're all facing as patients and caregivers.
Hmm.
And remember, your doctor is human too. But I think and that I would say that even if you waited for a while, it's not because your doctor didn't value your time. It's
Sure.
because the patient before you had something really hard and they had to spend more time than that was allotted in the system. Um, and so that's just a domino effect. And so that was the hard part about that. But I was in an academic institution, and that affords me the ability to, you know what I mean, have more support with other specialties and all of that, and access to things that I might not in private practice. So again, that's all I had. And I did spend 45 minutes with a patient there and got referred for efficiency training in HR. And so that's really hard. And then I was timed with how long I was with the patient. So
Wow.
afterwards. And so I knew I was kind of a square peg in a round hole there. And I was very burned out because I was still very much Pollyanna in how I wanted to practice medicine. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice that. So I actually quit. Didn't think I was actually going to go back to medicine ever again, even though I loved the patient care part. Like when I was in the room with the door closed,
Yeah.
heaven, angels, you know, flying around, that patient in front of my eyes, and I love
Yeah.
that saying about from Mother Teresa that, just look at the two eyes in front of you, take care of the person in front of you. But
Yeah.
then as soon as you step out of that room, then the chaos ensues, right? And so I did mission work for those 2 years, and I went to Nicaragua and Guatemala and Kenya and Tanzania. And I realized that as a PD derm, I did have some special knowledge, and that there are very few of us, and felt called to go back in medicine. But I started my own practice. But that, that was good because it afforded me the opportunity. All my patient visits were 30 minutes. New patients, follow-up patients, they had access to my email. It
Yeah.
was lovely. But to sustain that, I didn't take insurance, which is hard. But I was a direct patient care clinic, so I had my price online and people could file it with their insurance. But I had quite a few patients that called in that were upset about that. But nowadays, copays are $50, $75, $100 to see a specialist. And my fee, and I, as a double board certified physician in dermatology and pediderm, I was charging $125 for an initial consultation and $75. So again, anytime you go to the grocery store, you buy your
Yeah.
groceries. If you go get your hair cut and colored, that's a bad reference here. But only the only reason I bring this up is because my hairdresser used to be like, "That's all you get paid?" Like, and she's like, "I didn't even go to college, and you pay more for me to get your hair cut and colored." So again, if
Yeah,
you're
no
looking for
kidding.
things to be grateful for with alopecia, no haircuts and colors, right? Because that's expensive stuff. But it was her that she was even like, she's like, "That's all you get paid, and you went to
Yeah.
school for how many years?"
Yeah.
But that was lovely. That was lovely because I was in charge of it. And I was able to spend that time. But I will also tell you that in the entire time I did that, I didn't take a salary. The 8 years that I had that practice, I was at a break even point because I'd rather pour back into the patients than into
Yeah.
my pocketbook. So,
Yeah.
it's difficult out there.
Yeah.
It's difficult for patients, it's difficult for doctors. And I think we just need to remember that we're all human and give each other a lot of grace. And, I think this was a saying of my granny that you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. And I think that's, if we could all just remember that inside a clinic space, outside a clinic space, like,
Yeah.
let's just be more honey than vinegar to other people, because you really don't know
Yeah.
what another person's going through and what they're struggling with. And so I think when a patient comes in, and if, they're running late, of course that's frustrating, but there were patients that I would have my 10 minutes and they would yell at me for the first 5 minutes because I was running late. And I'm like, okay, I hate to tell you, but now we only have 5 minutes
Yeah.
for this appointment.
So that's the interesting thing though, is that I mean, if we knew we had 10 minutes, or I mean like 7 minutes, right? Because if you get your scribe in there or whatever, then you gotta, like you said, you've got all these different things you're juggling. What are the questions that we should ask when we come in and be prepared with, so that we can kind of help stay on task, and so we don't get caught up in the frustration, even though like it's okay to acknowledge that. What do you think would be a best approach coming from a patient and family coming in?
I think just really, thinking about what is most important for you before your appointment. And you know what that is, the things that you've been worrying about. Let's turn our worry into questions that
Right.
can have actionable steps, right?
Yeah.
And just saying, when the doctor walks in, it's really rare for a patient to be kind. It kind of disarms them almost. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think if you can say, I have been waiting for this appointment with you, and I've been so looking forward to our time together,
Mm-hmm.
that sets the tone, right? And again, I hate that patients need to take on that responsibility.
Right,
But
right.
just like any conversation, if you set the tone well, you're going to get more out of it. So the
Mhm.
benefit is that you will have a better visit with that physician. So,
Mhm.
I'm so grateful to be here. I know, and I these are the things that I have of concern that I'd like to discuss today. Kind of be clear from the beginning, because
Mhm.
sometimes I think, and physicians can be very directive sometimes because they know they only have so much time. So I
Mhm.
think if you can start the conversation that way, then maybe you'll have a little bit more control of the conversation even.
Yeah.
Um, and that will help direct, and if you say, these are the things that I'm hoping to get answered today,
Yeah.
and pick, you know, just your top three. Know that if you have 20 questions, and if you tell them you have 20 questions right from the front, beginning of the appointment,
Right.
they're just going to sink, their soul's going to sink inside a little bit. It's going to feel like a rock in their soul,
Right.
and we know that there's a lot of questions, and I'm not saying those aren't important questions. But that can be hard. So we all have to be realistic, because while we have 20 questions, what are your top three? And
Yeah.
let's try to get those answered well at this visit. And then just know
Mhm.
that you're going to have to make a follow-up appointment, because especially if you start in any therapy, they're going to want to assess your tolerance of it, your response to
Mhm.
it, your side effects from it.
Yeah.
And then just kind of follow up with other things, but prioritize your time.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. I think listeners are going to have a little bit different perspective of what their appointments can look like now based on, listening to what you've shared. So thank you.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, so you've retired and
Yeah.
you are also like really involved in some cool projects and I'd love to hear, more about that and have you share with listeners all about your very cool things that are hopefully coming up in the near future.
Well, yes, I will take that opportunity and run with it. Thank you, Deanne. Yeah, I again just feel so blessed and lucky to be able to do something that I love so much that feels like it really is having an impact. I'm at the stage where, you know, I really do want to have that ripple effect with my life. And sitting and taking care of patients does have a ripple effect, don't get me wrong, but I can
Mhm.
only see 15 patients in a day. But one of the initiatives I do, I'm director of Pediatric Dermatology Collaboration at Sagis. And that is, I teach and mentor up and coming dermatologists and the future of dermatology, so that hopefully they will be well trained to take good care of those who are living with skin conditions of all types. So I get to teach and teach cases and board reviews, and just really mentor and pour into these future dermatologists' lives. So that is something that I really enjoy, the teaching part of it,
Mhm.
because you don't know what you don't know. And again, if these kiddos don't know these things, they're not going to be able to take good care of other kiddos that have skin conditions. So
Yeah.
um, that's something that I love. And then I also do speak for CeraVe a bit to pediatricians, because again, pediatricians a lot of times, and I really respect them because they have to take care of the whole child, and there's so much anxiety with parents, especially new parents, and
Mhm.
I had those same anxieties, but um they don't know what they don't know either. They don't have any requirement in their medical education to learn dermatology.
Mhm.
So again, give your pediatrician a lot of grace. I would have people come to me and say, well, why didn't my pediatrician understand this? And I would always just say, I wasn't smart enough to be a pediatrician. I had to just focus on one organ, and that was it, because I wasn't smart
Mhm.
enough to know everything. So again, they and I did additional training, extra training, and I did a fellowship on top of dermatology to be a pediatric dermatologist. So,
Mhm.
and there's whole, you know, 2-volume textbooks that are that big that have just derm skin conditions in it, right?
Mhm.
It's complex condition, and we're learning more all the time. But um, anyway, teaching pediatricians is really helpful because they don't know what they don't know, but they're yet starving to know because so many kids have skin issues. So
Right.
that is something that I feel has an impact. But then our work at Made a Masterpiece, that is really my heart and soul. And we at Made a Masterpiece, we're the only 501(c)(3) nonprofit in the whole US supporting the social and emotional and spiritual aspects exclusively related to skin conditions of all types and birthmarks as well. So it's very special work that we do. And I think it's very important because kids that have skin conditions, adults included, so individuals with skin conditions, they have a 36% increased risk of suicide over age-matched peers when they live with a chronic skin condition. And you know, if I can make even just a small change in that, that's huge.
Yeah, for sure.
So the work we do, we really try to raise awareness about skin conditions to caregivers. So we do have an online module that summarizes the social emotional aspects and psychological aspects of all the skin conditions, and patients can go and or physicians can go and do that, care providers, and they get a little badge that says they're a masterpiece patient advocate.
Mhm.
So I would encourage, any physician that might be hearing this to go online and look through that and get your badge. And then we just have all kinds of educational things about skin. So we did a whole discovery box during the pandemic to help learn about skin, but we have those videos. So I think those are highly impactful for kids to learn about their skin and their skin health because it is our largest organ. And then awareness pieces, we do have a school coping plan that's on our website, and all of our resources are free online. So we have the school coping plan that you can print out and you can take into your teacher, and this is a perfect time of year to do that.
Mhm.
And I think that can be very impactful just to have that conversation up front, involve your child in that because it empowers them to then be their own advocate.
Mhm.
And then, sometimes at the beginning of the year, doing a little school presentation just to diffuse this, because again, when we make it a secret or
Yeah.
we make it something that's a big deal, instead of just kind of leveling the playing field, like, yes, I have alopecia areata, this is
Mhm.
and then because most kids, honestly, most kids are just curious,
Yeah.
um, and they just want to know, but they may not have been taught how to ask in appropriate ways. So
Mhm.
giving them the words to, or giving them the space to ask, I think is a great thing for parents
Yeah.
to do for their children, and
Mhm.
partnering with the teacher and the counselor at the school. Um, and then also role playing, that's a big thing that I think is important to do with your kids, instead of getting upset when people look or stare or ask questions, because then your child's going to do that. They're going to model you.
Mhm.
Just say, hey, I caught you looking, and I bet you have some questions about this. And again, catch more flies with honey than vinegar, and we can be our own best advocate. And,
Mhm.
just say it's just alopecia areata. But I think having your kids role play that, like when they get
Yeah.
questions, because they're going to get questioned,
Yeah, for
then
sure.
if they have the answers
Mhm.
ready to go, it won't, sideswipe them so much. Like they'll be
Right.
able to just roll with it. So
Mhm.
those are things that we talk about. We have a lot of other just support things on our website because we really want all kids to love the skin they're in and face the world with confidence. We do have a little flip book because so many people with alopecia areata also have eczema. So we know that's the
Mhm.
biggest association in childhood is kids with
Right.
atopic dermatitis or eczema have
Yeah.
a much higher percentage of alopecia areata.
Mhm.
And by the way, happy Alopecia Areata Month. But anyway, we have a flip book on atopic dermatitis, and then we also have a kids flip book on alopecia. Those are two that we have online. Those are free.
Yeah.
So I would encourage your families to go and check those out. Because again, the more we talk about it and we just normalize it and just make it another thing. Like Sally has red hair and Johnny has brown hair and Alanna wears glasses and Dan
Yeah.
doesn't have any hair. And guess what? That's
Yeah.
just how we were made. We were all made a masterpiece.
Mhm.
Created to be just who we were meant to be. So that is all great. But the one big project that I didn't mention yet, can I mention it?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So this is what we're doing right now. It's a big, big project, and I think it's going to have a big, big impact in the world for all people living with skin conditions, including those with alopecia. Um, it is a traveling art exhibit that is going to be entitled, Look at Me, What Do You See? This is me, let me help you see. Because we know that when people look at people with skin conditions, including alopecia, that's what they see, right? They don't look past it, but there's so much
Right.
more to all of us than our outer covering. And so it is just a good way to raise awareness. It's a highly interactive, it's a 5-screen multimedia interactive. There's games, there's educational modules, there's 3D models to educate about the skin and then also raise awareness about all different types of skin conditions.
Mhm.
It's also going to help just normalize skin conditions and demystify them because a lot of people assume wrongly about skin conditions that
Yeah.
they're contagious. They're not
Mhm.
contagious.
Yeah.
They can't be transferred to you. And I think, again, a lot of it is just misinformation and lack of education. And I think this project is going to help address that. It's going to launch in the Health Museum in Houston in September 2026. And then
Okay.
it's going to travel the US and go to, different institutions, different museums, different um, libraries and medical
Yeah.
schools and children's hospitals, and hopefully we'll travel for about 5 years. And then it's going to go to one of our collaborators galleries in New York. It is another dear friend of mine is Rick Gudaudy of Positive Exposure, and he really captures the beauty and humanity of living with visible differences of all types, and does that through photography. So this project is going to empower kiddos to really be able to share their stories in a powerful and impactful way that can really change the conversation around skin condition. Like
Yeah.
it gives them that opportunity and the families as well. We're also going to have little teaching modules about how to have conversations with people if you have questions, and or having the children share, like if somebody has a question, how do you want them to approach you?
Yeah.
And usually it's with kindness and curiosity
Mhm.
and but also to respect. If somebody says, I don't really want to talk about that right now, guess what,
Absolutely.
you should respect that response. So anyway, I hope that it just really, my goal is to make the world a better place for kids and all people, the millions and
Yeah.
millions of Americans who live with skin conditions of all types, just make the world a better place for them. um,
Yeah.
so
Awesome.
yeah,
I
I'm
love
excited for it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I feel like it's so important to share how to do something different, right? I mean, there's the knowledge of this is what it is, and then the next thing you can do, like you said, educate the public, educate the child to talk about what's going on, should they want to, educate the parents, and making it a fun and interactive experience with um, this art exhibition and making it art, which is even kind of like an extra cool layer to me, is incredible. And I think that, listening, it all sounds very put together, like this is happening and this is, you've got a plan for this, this, and this. And I think just like what you were doing with explaining about how dermatology appointments go, it's not what we think, right? I mean, there's always um, frustrations about funding. This is not, an inexpensive thing that you're doing here. It costs money, and that you need some financial support for this. This is the plan, and I do see it happening. I think that it's incredible, it's worthwhile, and things like that do happen. I don't know if anybody has watched the Live Aid like documentary. When you look at that documentary, you go, this is a guy who was a musician and he decided to solve hunger, you know, and he did it. And it was kind of, you know, when you have a purpose in your life and it becomes something that you're driven by and that, you know, I love things that make sense and are also kind of beautiful and stuff. It just, it's awesome. So I do see it happening.
Thank
And
you.
for people who want to donate, like let's talk about how people can reach you and find you on social media. Let's do that first.
Yes, I love that. Thanks for that shout out and
Yeah.
all those kind words because yes, a big project comes with a big price tag.
Yeah.
And again, I talk as if it's happening because I believe in positive manifestation in our life and
Yeah.
assuming that this is going to be out in the world. But we are definitely we have the content, we have some photos, we have some of the kids' stories, but the actual technology that goes with it and
Yeah.
that is in the works and definitely supporting that would be lovely in any way in every single dollar because we have we have no one on our staff. We have no overhead. Our organization is completely volunteer led. So everything that is
Mhm.
donated to our organization goes 100% to our mission and supporting those that we love so much.
Mhm.
So you can know that that is the case. And we are a 501(c)(3). So we do, it's tax deductible for every dollar.
Right.
So yeah, if anybody wants to jump in and be a part of making this, dream become a true reality. And again,
Mhm.
you did highlight the art. So there's going to be art as part of this. And
Yeah.
these artists that are behind me are two of the artists of the Masterpiece Collective who are making artwork for this. Um,
Awesome.
so it's, again, our skin is a canvas and it has colors and patterns and textures, and we were again all made to be a masterpiece and one of a kind unique work of art. So the fact that we're incorporating art, and we've had these artists in the Masterpiece Collective, they're donating their time, they're donating artwork to be auctioned off. So yeah, I just am so thankful for the people that have come around it already and the future people that are going to come around it. So yeah, so find all the resources and you can donate online. We do have a whole web page on the exhibition if you want to learn more about that. So it's
Mhm.
madeamasterpiece.org is our website. And then you can find us on social media. Facebook, we're Made a Masterpiece. Instagram, I was Made a Masterpiece. We're on LinkedIn. We have some YouTube videos. I do a story times with Dr. Bree about raising awareness about all kinds of skin conditions that we kind of took a break for the summer. I need to get that up and going again. But that's on our YouTube channel. We're on TikTok. So Made a Masterpiece out there. And yeah, follow us and like us. And if you're in the Houston area, we do a positive perspective series where we use therapeutic arts to help us look at things in a positive way. So we've done one on with a local painter artist, brilliant Sarah Fisher. We've had a musician come, and then photography and writing. We've done a poetry
Mhm.
session. So those are great things. And then Camp Dermadillo, our 1 day camp experience in the central area of Texas. But then in February, we have our weekend camp. It's going to be a family camp. And we're actually going to be getting some content for this exhibition there. Rick Gudowdy, my friend, will be in from New York. My friend Lee Beckman, who's doing the videography for the project, will be there. So we'll be capturing some more of that for this exhibition. But it's at a great campsite, Camp for All.
Mhm.
And it's a barrier-free camp. It's amazing. Indoor zip lines, indoor rock wall climbing, outdoor
Yeah.
horseback riding. So that's coming up. So if people are interested, certainly reach out and you can find us. I was Made a Masterpiece at madeamasterpiece.org. That email goes to me because I am the one that monitors it. So you can certainly get in touch with me that way. Sign up online. There are some other support organizations. I have Coco Cares. We're part of that community for children that are having severe depression. It's a great organization to be involved with. And then also, and that you can find on our More tab. If you drop down and you go to support, then you can link to the Coco Cares with them, and then also free resources. available. The Kids Mental Health Foundation is great. It's supported by a grant. It's a different organization, but they have great resources online, a lot of them free. So I would encourage families that if your kiddos are struggling, those are great places to plug into in addition to Made a Masterpiece.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for all that. And I will have all of those links and things in the show notes for people because I don't expect them to be driving or gardening
Yes,
and
please
listening
no,
to
please no.
all
Please
that
no,
stuff
no.
up. So the show notes will have all of that in there for all of you guys listening. And I just want to thank you, Dr. Alanna Bree, for being here and for sharing, kind of just being really transparent in how I want to say like how the world works. Like that's kind of almost like the basics of it, there's limitations and then there's, things we don't understand and then there's ways to deal with it and then there's kind of a general understanding of more than just what's going on with ourselves. So I appreciate you just being really happy to share all of that with us today.
Of course, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm so thankful for you and this podcast and the work that you are doing because it's amazing. And shout out to you
Thank
because,
you.
yeah, you, like me, just want to make the world a better place for people living with alopecia, and you're doing that, and I see it. So I see you, I value you, I love you, and
Thank you.
yeah, I just am so thankful to again to be able to work together to make, the world a better place.
Well, thank
With
you.